Okay. Good morning, everybody. In today's session, we will look into the domain name system. Okay. Domain name system. So, what is a domain name system? Before understanding that, we talked about in the previous class about the IP address, right? IP address is a unique number, and it can be IPv4 or IPv6. Yesterday we talked about the difference, how IPv4 is framed, and how IPv6 is framed. So whether it is IPv4 or IPv6, so we will have a unique number. Okay, using that unique number, we can identify each resource in the network is given with that unique number, and we will be identifying every resource or the device in the network using the that particular unique number. And when we talk about the unique number, uh, remembering the unique number or comprehending the number is not that easy. So that is the reason we have the domain name system. Okay, in case of a domain name system, we will be having a name which will be associated with the IP. Okay, domain name system, as elegant as IP address may be, human beings do not enjoy having to recall long strings of numbers instead of IP addresses. So we use the domain name system. So instead of having a series of numbers, and to remember those series of numbers or to comprehend it is very difficult. For that reason, we have a domain name. So we will have a proper name which will be associated with the IP address. This is the DNS overview.
Sir,
See,
screen is not visible.
our screen is not visible. Sorry, I have not shared. Is it visible now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So again, this is the first slide. DNS name is what? It is a, instead of remembering the IP address, we will have a more friendly names. Okay, domain names which will be associated with the IP address. This is the overview of the DNS. Here, he is the user, and he wants to access this particular web application or the website www.funwebdev.com. Now, this is easy way to represent. Okay, we can remember this particular website instead of having a IP address. So if it is just a IP address, thousands of IP address representing the web application, it will become very confusing. Memorizing them, it is very difficult. If we have a name like this, then it would be very easy. So whenever we have a name like this all the resources I told you will be accessed on the network using the IP address only. So first we need to resolve this name. So for that, he will type the this particular URL in the website, and he will hit enter. Then that request will go to the domain name server. Okay. That request will go to the domain name server, and it will check what is the IP address that is associated with this particular URL. Then the domain name server will send a respond back to the browser with the IP address. So now funwebdev.com, this mapping is stored in the domain name server. So funwebdev.com is mapped with this particular IP address. So it will return the IP address to the browser. So this number IP address will come. Once we have the IP address, again we have to request the application, right? Again a request is sent to the this particular server. So this is the server. That server is a web server located here. That request will come to the this particular server. Let us say whenever you request this, some default page will be loaded. that default page as a response HTML will be sent back to the browser and it will be displayed. So that is how the DNS work. And there are different levels, domain levels. This is, you must have seen, either it will be a .com, okay, .org, .co.in. So there are so many different top level domain. This is called as a top level domain, and whatever the name you give, okay, for your web application, that will go as a second level domain, and World Wide Web, that would be the third level domain, and the server will go as the fourth level domain. So this is how. So it will start with the top level domain. Okay, it is more generic, and as you go to the fourth level, it will become very specific. And here, whenever you see the top level domain, it will give some kind of a information to you. So .com, it represents the company. .org, it's an organization. So .in, .co.in, company in India. Similarly, for other countries, we have CA, US, all those extensions are there that can be that will form as a top level domain. So generic top level domains like I told you .com, .org, and so on, and country code top level domain co.in, co.ca, and so on. So name registration. So whatever the name you select for your web application, it has to be registered somewhere. So you have a certain name. So you want to build your application. So you want to let us say that example was FunWeb Dev. You want to start your own company, and let us say the your company is Smart Force, and you want to start that company, and you want to register the Smart Force domain. So you want to have smartforce.com or smartforce.org, whatever the name you want to give. So what you will do is, the special organization or companies called domain name registrars manage the registration of domain names. So the domain name registrars, those are the people who will manage those registration, and they will update the DNS. These domain name registrars are given permission to do so by the appropriate generic top level domain registry and the country code top level domain registry. So they are being given permission, so they can do the name registration, domain name registration. So domain name registration process, if you can, here is the complete process that is given. So first is decide on top level domain and a second level domain. In your case, let us say you want to have a smartforce.com. So that is the name you want to register. Here they have taken the example of .com and FunWebDev. So once you decide upon what is the domain name you want, choose a domain name registrar or a reseller. So these are the companies which does the registration. There are a lot of companies which will do the registration. You will approach them, and these registrars, once you approach these registrars with your domain name, what they will do is they will check if that particular domain is available or not. So next is because if already, suppose google.com, it is already there, you cannot take google.com. So for example, whatever the domains that are available already registered, you will not be given those domains because they are already registered with someone else. If it is not available, then only you will be given. So it registrars will check if domain is available by asking registry for the TLD. Okay. Then once if it is available, then complete the registration procedure, which includes who is the contact information and the payment information, whatever the payment information. Once it is done, then enjoy the new domain you have just purchased. Suppose like Okay. Once you check, complete the registration process, then registry will push the DNS. So whatever the DNS name you are selected against the IP address, it will be pushed to the DNS. Okay. Once this DNS name is pushed to the DNS, that is the domain name server, then it will be available to everybody. So after that, you will be, that particular domain will be registered with your name or your organization. DNS address resolution. How the DNS is resolved. Whatever the address that you give as a DNS name, how it is resolved. While domain names are certainly an easier way for users to reference a website, eventually your browser needs to know the IP address of the website in order to request any resource from it. Even though you have a domain name, first we have to resolve that. Resolve what IP address it is mapped to. Then only your browser will be able to access that particular resource or the web server. The domain name system provides a mechanism for a software to discover this numeric IP address. The process is referenced here as address resolution. So in the background, it will be taken care. So you will not be, you will just type the domain name. In the background, the resolution of the domain name will takes place and it will get the IP. So first step, you will type www.funwebdev.com. Okay, when you type, it will go to the if that particular IP is available in the cache. Okay, browser cache. In the browser cache, if it is able to resolve that particular DNS, then it will immediately get the IP and it will send the request to the respective server. If suppose it is not in the DNS cache, then resolver makes an request to the IP address of the ISP DNS server. So your internet service provider, he has a DNS server. Then it will check whether it is available here. Okay, in this particular DNS server, which is with your internet service provider. Let us say if it is not available here, then it will go to the root name server. Okay, first it will check the cache. Okay, browser cache. If it is not resolved, means not resolved in the sense we want to find the what is the IP address for funwebdev.com. If it is not available here, then it will next go to the ISP. Okay, in ISP DNS server, it will check whether it is available or not. If it is available, it will get the IP address and it will send the request to the particular web server. If it is not available, then it will go to the root name server. Okay, and once it goes to the root name server, the root name server returns the IP of the name server for requested TLD. So it will go to the root server. So this is whatever the TLD we have for the particular for example com. So we will have a com name server, or if it is a org, we will have a org name server. This particular is a com.com. So the root name server will give the IP address of the com name server. So this will give the IP address of the com name server. So once it has the IP address of the com server, it will send it to the request to the com name server. In the com name server, it will give the IP address of the DNS server. So what is the actual DNS server? Then you will get the name of the DNS server. Then once it has the IP address of the DNS server, it will send the request to the DNS server. And DNS server, because you are during the registration process, all the entries are pushed to the DNS server. So your domain name and IP address is pushed to DNS server. It will check funwebdev and it will send the IP address of the web server where funwebdev application is installed. Then it will send that information back to the our browser, and browser will send a, once it has the IP address browser, it will send a request. Browser request the a page from this web server, because we have the IP address of this web server. It will send the request and the page is loaded. So it will return a HTML, that page is loaded. So this is how the domain name will get address will get resolved. Resolution of address means what? Finding what is the IP address associated with this particular website or web application. So once, just to repeat, you will type funwebdev.com. First it has to find the IP address. It will check the browser's cache if DNS can be resolved. If not, it will go to the ISP primary DNS server. It will check whether it is available or not. If it is not, if it is available, then it will send it back. If it is not available, then it will send to the root name server. In this case, it is a com. This root name server will give the IP address of the com name server. So with that, it will give the response as the IP address of this. Then once it has the IP address of this com name server, it will send a request to this, and it will return the IP address of the DNS server, because DNS server has the mapping. So this will send back the IP address of a DNS server, and this will send a request here. It will get the response as the IP address of the web server, and that is given back to the browser, and browser with that IP address which is mapped to funwebdev, it will make request to the web server, and in response it will get a HTML which will be loaded on the browser. Next, uniform resource locators, URL. In order to allow the clients to request particular resource from the server, a naming mechanism is required so that client knows how to ask the server for a file. Okay, so this is the reason, like uniform resource locator, whatever the URL that we use on the browser, so it has a different components, and some of the information if you want to pass on to the server, that mechanism is also part of the URL. Here you can see this is the one example, http:// www.funwebdev.com, that is the domain, then / this is the path. So you are looking for this resource on the server. So this is the domain name which will be resolved to IP address, and that IP address belongs to certain web server, and on that web server we are looking for this particular resource, index.php. And next one is the query string. So where we say page is equal to 17, and then article is the fragment. So query string, what is a query string? So you want to pass certain information to the server along with your URL. That is, those information is a part of the query string. Query strings will be covered in depth when we learn in the, again this particular query string is going to come when we talk about the HTML forms and the server side programming. That is where we will see this one in detail. Just to understand here briefly, the query string, it is part of the URL, and it begins with the question mark. From the question mark, I will show you. From here, after the question mark, that is the query string. It begins with a query string, and here it is passing two information. Okay, username and the password, and these information will be always in the key value pair. So what is the key? Key is the whatever the attribute or whatever you want to call, the variable you want to call, that is the key, and this is the associated value with that key. So this is called as a key value pair. So here username is equal to John. Username is the key, and it has the value of John is equal to John. And if there are more than one key you want to pass, then you separate it using the ampersand delimiter. And after the ampersand, you have next key value pair. Okay, password is equal to, and this is the value of the password. This is how on the server side you will be able to get the information. So you will have the username as John and password as this particular value. Hypertext Transfer Protocol, HTTP. The HTTP protocol establishes a TCP connection on port 80. This port 80 is by default. So if you don't configure it with something else, the automatically the port 80 will be used. The server waits for the request and then responds with a response code headers as an optional message. Okay, which can include files or images or anything else. So the server will wait for the request on this particular port, and it will give a response. Whenever it get a request, it processes and it will give the appropriate response. This is the example. HTTP request. This is the HTTP request that is sent to the server, and this is the HTTP response. So here you just understand, whenever you have the whenever you are requesting a server, that goes through this particular protocol. Okay, and there are different types of requests. Okay, get is there, post is there, some other requests are there, and responses will depend on what is being requested, and this particular information will be some metadata that it will be sending it to the server. Similarly, response header will have some header metadata information along with the HTML page, or any reference to the resources that are on the page, or images, or any kind of a file. So that would be the part of a response, depends on what has been requested from the web server. Web requests. While we as a web users might be tempted to think of the entire page being returned in a single HTTP response, this is not in fact what happens. So whenever you are accessing any website, okay, what you feel is entire application gets loaded. But in fact what happens is, whatever the page you have requested, it will download that. Basically, all the websites, they will have a home page, and on the home page it will have a links to navigate to other parts of the application. So when you have the home page loaded, it will have all the links or buttons, whatever is needed to navigate to the different parts of the application, but it will load only single HTML page. Suppose you click on any button or any link, that is again it will send a request to the server, and it will load that particular resources. And when a single page is loaded, if there are any reference to the any resources, let us say there are some images or some files are there, it will make sure that the browser, when it parses the HTML, if there are any references, then it will make additional request to the server. Let us say there is an image, it will make an additional request to the image and gets that image, and it paints on that particular HTML page. Only when all the resources of that particular HTML document is obtained, then it will load the page. Okay, browser parsing HTML and making subsequent requests. Here is the one example. User has requested vacation.html. So some website, then vacation.html page. Once this request is sent to the server will respond with this page, vacation.html page. Then the browser will parse the HTML, whatever the vacation.html HTML is there, browser will parse it, and if there are any resources that are referenced on that particular page, then it will make a additional request. Suppose in this particular case there are two additional resources. One is a style sheet is there, CSS file is there, and another image is there. So after parsing, it will come to know there is a reference to the CSS file as well as the image file. It will make an additional request. So it will request styles.css to the server, and it gets the CSS file. And similarly, it will request the image picture.jpg, and it gets the image back. Once it gets all these two resources, then it will load the browser. Modern browser provides the developer with tools that can help understand HTTP traffic for a given page. So nowadays, browsers are there which will give additional tools where you can see the how the traffic is going on. HTTP request methods. HTTP protocol defines several different types of request, each with a different intent and the characteristic. As I told you, whenever request is being done through the HTTP, there are different types of request, and most commonly used requests are the GET and the POST. We will see these in detail later in your syllabus. And along with that, there is a head request, there is a put, delete, connect, trace options. Okay, these requests are used rarely. The most frequent you will see is the get and the post request, HTTP request. Okay, so this is a get request. So this is a post and this is a get request. In the post, you can see there is some information being edited or entered by the user, and this information needs to be passed to the server. So when they click on the submit, so we call a user post method. So we'll see how the form, what is a form, how it gets submitted, what is a post method, and what is the get method in later classes. Okay, web server. So what is a web server? Whatever requests that are coming to the web server, it will check what kind of a request is there and the processing is done. Okay, that software is called as a web server. Web server is nothing but the software which takes the HTTP request and it responds with a HTTP. So it gives a HTTP response. That response could be an HTML file or image or any other file. A web server at a fundamental level, nothing more than a computer, okay, that responds to HTTP request. It is more than a computer, it is the software that is residing on that computer, that is the web server. So normally the web servers will have a higher end configurations, okay, and web server is the software that is installed on that higher end, high end configured computer. Web stack, regardless of the physical characteristics of the server, one must choose an application stack to run website. This stack will include operating system, web server, software, database, and scripting language to process dynamic requests. So whenever we talk about a web application, it is a stack. Okay, it is a stack of a software. In that stack, we will have a operating system, we will have a web server software, and suppose you are storing data in a database, so you will be having a interaction with the database to store the data. So then you will have a database, and you will have some kind of a scripting language to process the request. So scripting can be, you can have scripting on the client side, that is the browser side. You can have a scripting on the server side. So there are server side scripting, client side scripting, which will dynamically process the request that is coming to the web server. So example for the scripting language, JavaScript is there, PHP is there. So you can use those things. And LAMP software stack. So this is the stack using which we can develop a web application. So here LAMP stands for the Linux operating system, and this is the Apache web server, and M stands for the MySQL database, and P stands for the scripting language, PHP. Okay, throughout this textbook we will rely on the LAMP software stack, which refers to the Linux operating system, Apache web server, MySQL database, and PHP scripting language. So what we can do is we can have a similar to LAMP, there is a XAMPP. Okay, XAMPP. Okay, So X stands for Windows. Most of us have, I believe, Windows operating system. It is your wish, whichever stack you want to use, you can use. What I will be using is the XAMPP, XAMP, where X stands for the Windows and the rest are same. It is Apache Web Server, MySQL database, and PHP scripting language. So just I will show you the XAMPP. Just you will have an idea of what I say. This you would require to install, not immediately. Okay, this is the XAMPP control panel. Whenever we start with the server side programming, okay, when we I think it is module 3, second part of the module 3, there we start with the server side. So that time you would need XAMPP stack, software stack. Okay, so this is the XAMPP you can see here. So apart from what they have listed, there are additional things. So in this stack, we have the Apache. This is the web server. We have the MySQL. We have FileZilla, Mercury, and Tomcat. Tomcat is the application server. So from here, you can, if you want to run any web application on your local system, that is localhost, you have to install this XAMPP, which will comes with this particular software package, software stack. And once you develop the application, then whenever you want to run the server, you will click on the start. So when you click on the start, automatically on my system, now web server software is running. Now I can run web applications on my system as a local host. Okay, it will not be accessible from any internet from outside, but on my system I can run the application, web application, locally. And if you want to start the database, you will say start. So you will see the status here. Now the database is started. Suppose now the database is running on my system. If my application is using my any kind of a database, so it will be able to interact easily, because both the softwares are running. So we don't need it now. So whenever we come across that part of a syllabus, we will see some examples where we will go through the example, how to run the server, how to run the application, where to install, okay, on the local system. All those things we will talk about. Similar to XAMPP, we have Visa. Okay, so many corporations, for instance, make use of the Microsoft Visa software stack, which refers to Windows operating system. This is the Microsoft provided web server, IIS web server, SQL Server database. Again, that's a Microsoft product, and ASP.NET. So this is a all this is related to the Microsoft. Okay, so that completes the introduction. Okay. Now we'll start with your actual syllabus, where we are going to look into the HTML. Okay, just let me open the syllabus. Okay, so this is the module 1. We are going to begin. Introduction to HTML. We'll understand what is the markup language, what is HTML, and where did it come from, HTML syntax, semantic markup. Okay, HTML, there are a lot of tags. Most commonly used tags are covered. Their syntax is covered. And we will be covering those which are important, which will be able to help with most commonly used HTML tags and their syntaxes. We will look into semantic markup, structure of HTML document, quick tour of HTML elements, all the elements, HTML5 semantic structure elements, then introduction to cascaded style sheet, CSS. What is CSS? Then what is the syntax of the CSS? location of styles where we can include the styles. Okay, there are three different locations. We'll see selectors. We'll see what are selectors. The cascade, how styles interact, the box model, CSS, text styling. These are the things we are going to look into. And from the textbook, this is going to be the chapter 2 and 3. So here what we are going to see is, and whatever the text prescribed textbook you have, all the syllabus is completely covered there, and your syllabus and the textbook, they have a very good match if you have that particular textbook. Okay, and as I told you before, I suggest you to buy, if you don't have the textbook. It is a good reference book which can be with you for a very long time. Okay, so here we look into HTML defined and its history, HTML syntax, semantic markup, structure of HTML, quick tour of HTML, HTML semantic elements. So we talked about how the internet started. So we understood it started with the ARPANET. Okay, ARPANET was it was funded by the US government. Basically, it was used for the research and academic purposes, and that was during the 1960s. And then later there was a plan to improve upon that. They started coming up with the standards, writing protocols, so that the different networks that were getting created can interact. And since the concept of ARPANET, the network was slowly growing bigger and bigger. In order to have a common thing between all the networks to have the seamless connections, they came up with a lot of protocols, standards, and Tim Berners-Lee in 1991, he came up with the idea specification for the HTML, and uh, later that HTML codification was standardized by the W3C, that is Worldwide Web Consortium. So HTML, we know it is a markup language, and markup language is a simple way of annotating a document in which way to make the annotations distinct from the text being annotated. So here the difference is, uh, uh, you use annotations, right? You annotations represent the marking up. Okay, markup language, whatever is the content, right? Text is distinct, whatever the text you want to display. Suppose on your website you want to have the title in the bold, that bold is the annotation. What text you give is a it is not really related to the annotation. The term comes from the days of print, when editors would write instructions on manuscript pages that might be a revision instruction to the author or the copy editor. So next is the this. So here you can see the markup. This is the actual text or the content, and this is the markup. So what is the markup? This is the main heading. Okay, second heading. In HTML, how it is achieved? We have the heading h1, h2 tag. Okay, that is the HTML tag. So if you want to have a different levels of headers, that you will be using it as a markup, and it does not relate with a text. Okay, so you have to make sure you are differentiating between the markup, okay, and the text or the content of the particular web page. So here you can see this is second heading and bulleted. So for some reason you want to make it as a list. Okay, so that should be a bulleted. So that is a markup. This is the code piece. So this is how we talk about the markup. So in a document, we want to see a document where markup will give some kind of a information. So when you have a particular text as a first headline, okay, main heading. So it reveals information in itself other than what text is being written there, right? So that is how, looking at the top header, you will come to know this is the very important information on that particular page. Okay. So at its simplest, markup is a way to indicate information about the content. So it is, markup is what? It is the way to indicate information about the content. So content, your main heading, that it is telling, it is how important. It is telling the information that this is the main heading. It is different from what actual content you put there. The information about the content is HTML is implemented via tags. Okay, so how that this is always information about the content. When you are using the HTML, so certain things you want to highlight, right? You put it in a italic, right? Italic is a markup. You are telling something is important there. You have put it in a italic, or you put it in a bold. Okay, when you put something in the bold or something in double quotes, for example, you can see here double quotes. This double quotes is giving some information. Whatever the text it is written here is very, very important. Okay, so that is how HTML will give information about the content. What content is written, that is immaterial. So similarly, in a line you have something in the bold. Okay, when you use the something in the bold, bold is a markup. Okay, it tells that whatever the text that is in bold is very, very important. Markup in the previous slide consists of red text and the various circles and arrows on the one page and little yellow sticky notes on the other. So in the previous page you saw like there are so many markings and all those things. That is the markup. HTML does the same thing but uses the textual tags. Okay, so whatever you want to achieve to show the importance in the document, all those things can be done. Only thing is, what we have is a textual tags, which will so in order to have a bold, I have a certain HTML text. So definitely the look on the HTML document would be exactly same. Only when I'm writing the HTML code, it would be a textual tags. What is the W3C? We already looked into this. This is the worldwide consortium, World Wide Web consortium. It actually promoted the standards when HTML was it was web applications were becoming more and more popular. There was definite need for the standardization, and that particular task was taken care by the W3C. So we will look into more detail in the next class about the W3C. What are the different versions that came up, okay, for the HTML, and how it until HTML5 what we have today, how the things got changed, what were the issues, how it got resolved, what is the path it traced. We will look into this in the next class.